Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Strong Stoic Podcast. I am your host. That's right, you all know me, right? Brandon Tumblin. Many of the greatest philosophers in history were misunderstood. It makes sense, right? For someone to be great, they must be different from everyone else. And that often takes the form of being misunderstood. Still, it's an interesting conundrum because clearly they're understood in some ways. Otherwise, why even listen to them? And then there's the question, does everyone misunderstand them? And then do we need to be understood as people, as individuals, by the world or by maybe even one person to function properly? In this episode, I'll be talking about being understood and misunderstood. If you would like to support this podcast, consider checking out my Patreon at Brandon Tumblin. I also offer coaching services on there. It's not expected, but it is deeply appreciated. If you would like to financially support me a little bit, would really appreciate that. Also consider checking out my Telegram group chat where you basically get to have discussions on the podcast episodes with similar Strong Stoics. And it's great, so check that out at the Strong Stoic channel chat. Also, my articles are on Medium and the Stoic Gym magazine. Finally, check out my Substack if you want the episodes and other things emailed directly to you. I know not everyone likes emails, but a lot of people do like emails still. I mean, it's the OG in terms of, I guess, marketing. So if you would like to join the Substack, it's basically a newsletter where I send out the episodes as they are released. So they come right to your inbox. So consider checking that out as well. I did a whole episode a little while back with Dr. Sharon LaBelle on the topic of the loneliness of the philosopher's journey. And I highly recommend listening to that if you're struggling with loneliness. Well, if you're a human being, in other words. Part of the reason why this journey is lonely is that it's really a journey of self-discovery. Determining the best way to live goes hand in hand with knowing thyself. You can't separate the two, because how can you know how to live if you don't know yourself? How can you live according to nature if you don't know what that really means? As you move forward in life, you go from someone who really has no idea who they are to someone who ideally knows exactly who they are and how to live such that they can flourish. But you can imagine how rocky that road can be. If you don't know who you are, say when you're young, you also don't know how to make friends with, or who to make friends with, rather. Sure, you'll find yourself naturally gravitating towards some people, but this pull to people isn't always accurate and is normally accurate to the degree that you actually know yourself. As an example, you might find yourself pulled towards a person in high school because they are quote-quote cool. But as the days of smoking cigarettes and drinking all night take their toll, you may begin to realize that that's not really who you are. So, you may need to drop that friend. You see, as you move forward in life, you learn who you are and what you value. And you also learn who your friends are and who they should be. Whom do you want to surround yourself with? And this journey, the philosopher's journey, is inherently lonely because it's a road that you must walk. You must walk. If you're lucky, you have a few people sharing the road with you, but you still must take agency and responsibility for each step on that journey. Still, we have this natural tendency, this natural desire to be understood. We want to be understood. We don't like loneliness. We crave feeling connected to something bigger than us. The moral psychologist Dr. Jonathan Haidt believed that this psychological mechanism, feeling as if there's something greater than us, evolved because of our tribal days. Of course, a lot of our psychology is built because of our tribal days. Consider the example of an army formation marching in unison. As you march, you become more and more among everyone else. You're with everyone else. You become one, the whole army, the whole unit. There's unity, there's commonality there. It's identical, according to Haidt, to how bees act in their hive. They are not individual bees. They are a hive of bees. There is something greater, and that's the hive itself. This psychological mechanism is what allows bees to fight and die for their hive. Their individual identity gets replaced by the hive identity. And so the survival of the hive becomes more important than the survival of the individual. This is the same mechanism that human beings have. We don't have it all the time. In fact, Haidt believes that we are about 10% bee and 90% individuals. But that feeling when we are 10% bee, that is the feeling that we are a part of something greater than ourselves. And we are, truly. Being a part of a hive like that means that we are also fully accepted, that we are one with everyone else, that we are trusted, that we are understood. If you've ever been a part of a group like a sports team or a book club, you'll know that feeling. It's one of harmony. It's one of feeling like you are a part of something greater, and that, consequently, you are understood. The downside of the hive, as I've discussed much in the past, is that groups tend to decay over time. Because there is a strong desire to be understood and to be one with everyone else, individuals are tempted to not live in accordance with their own nature, with their own truth. They stop speaking truth. They stop forming their own opinions. They take on the personality and the views of the group, because not doing so means that they risk being expelled and ostracized from the group, and that means a return to the dreaded loneliness. This is, of course, short-sighted, because if you don't live true to yourself, you can't have deep inner peace. What you have is an artificial peace. Your body has peace, but your soul is in turmoil because you're not living in accordance with your own nature. If you speak your truth, you may get ostracized and be sent out alone. That's scary. You may be lonely for a long time, maybe forever. Who knows? You may be in a situation that is initially worse than living a lie among the tribe. That's a scary thought. But who knows? That's why this pull to conform to the crowd is so strong. And it's also why the Stoics urge us to conform externally, but to be internally different. Emerson had some interesting thoughts on being misunderstood. He said, "Misunderstood. It is a right fool's word. Is it so bad then to be misunderstood? Pythagoras was misunderstood, and Socrates, and Jesus, and Luther, and Copernicus, and Galileo, and Newton, and every pure and wise spirit that ever took flesh. To be great is to be misunderstood." Emerson. What Emerson is describing here is that all great men are misunderstood in their time. Socrates was sentenced to death for corrupting the youth, quote, quote. Jesus was crucified. Copernicus, who proposed that the earth was orbiting the sun and not the other way around, was called an idiot. He went against the science of the day. Galileo was given the same treatment by stating that the earth was round and not flat. And the same for Newton, who defined physics as we understand it today. These great men, these great people, stood out from the crowd. They declared, "I have truth that I deem accurate, and I will say it regardless of the consequences, because I would rather live alone in accordance with my own nature than to live in deception." Emerson asks, is it so bad then to be misunderstood? And I would say that it depends on what your priorities and values are. These men were great, but undeniably lonely. Is loneliness the price for greatness? And is this what Dostoevsky was referring to when he declared, "Pain and suffering are always inevitable for a large intelligence and a deep heart. The really great men must, I think, have great sadness on earth. Dostoevsky. Fortunately for you and me, the chances of us even having the capacity of knowing such a groundbreaking truth that results in us being crucified are slim. But at the same time, it's impossible to say and to be entirely aligned with those around you. And by extension, it's impossible to be completely understood. Maybe the best that we can truly hope for is not to be understood by every single person on planet Earth, but rather by a select few. Plato understood Socrates. Jesus was understood by his disciples. Emerson had a great friendship with Henry Thoreau and some others. There's a scene in a show I recall where a deaf person is having a conversation with a non-deaf person. The non-deaf guy asks the deaf guy something like, "Is it frustrating to have to work really hard to be understood?" And the deaf guy replied, "Yes. But if I didn't do it, I'd have no one." I do think that when you decide to live in accordance with your own nature, you do lose a lot of quote, quote, friends. But what you also do is open yourself up to the potential of having a real, true, deep connection with others. It may not be 1,000 people. It may not be 100 people. It may not be 10. It may not even be 2. But if you are understood by, firstly, yourself, and secondly, by even just a handful of people, by even one person, I think you have all you need to flourish. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you enjoyed it, please consider leaving a rating and review wherever you're listening to this. If you're new here, episodes every Tuesday and Thursday. Check me out on all the social medias, Instagram, Twitter, YouTubes. Would love to see you. Would love to see you join the Telegram group chat. Not going to bug you guys anymore. Thanks again. Cheers. Until next time.